Two little girls rode on their bikes to the local park and just vanished into thin air. Their families and concerned relatives began searching for them until the police got involved, and what they found was nothing short of gruesome. Skin tears under the deceased fingernails, semen on their bodies. The case was so unbelievable and spiraled into so many plot twists as the father and grandfather of one of the girls searched relentlessly for their offspring. This is the sad story we'll be covering today. Gracing her family with the cries of a child on the 25th of September 1996, Laura Hobbs was born the first child of the family. And in no time, she became the elder sister of 3 other boys. They all lived in Texas until the family tore apart. Laura's mom took the kids and moved to a small town, Zion, in Illinois, where her parents lived. Laura loved the town, and most especially, she loved Lake Michigan and enjoyed visiting it. She easily made friends. When Laura was 8 years old, her father didn't just run back to the mother of his child. He decided to stay in the small town with his family. Laura already had a best friend that she did all kinds of shenanigans with. Her name was Krystal. She was 9 years old and also in the same school as Laura. They often spent all their free time together, and whenever Laura had gotten herself grounded or her mother wouldn't let her step out of the house, Krystal would come by her window, and they'd chat until it was time for Krystal to return home. They often visited a park nearby, and because their parents trusted them, coupled with the fact that the crime rates were quite low in this area, they often let the girls ride their bicycles to the park unsupervised. One day, at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the girls decided to ride their bikes to the park, but never returned home after that. It was way past dinner when their families began to worry about the kids. They set out to look for their kids at the park, but were met with the sore disappointment of their absence. It was already 9 p.m. The families had already searched to and fro the bike trail for their kids and also employed the help of family members and friends. They searched, and it was already 9 p.m. With heavy hearts, they called the cops, who in turn called on organizations and volunteers to help them search for the missing kids. Locals who also heard about the girls came around to help. The focal points for the cops were the park and the route to get there. They knocked door to door and found out that the girls indeed went through this path. The girls also stopped and spoke to a few kids who used the route, telling them that they were heading to the park. The cops also set up flyers and shared a few, but as each half hour passed, it became more evident that something bad had happened to the girls. Thoughts of kidnapping kicked in. Thoughts of losing track of time kicked in. And as much as one might want to keep it away, the thoughts of the girls being murdered also trooped in. The cops decided to take a break and give it a rest at about 4 a.m. Laura's dad and her granddad kept on searching and splitting ways to search in more different areas. At about 6 a.m., Laura's dad was heard crying. It caught the attention of Laura's grandfather, who immediately ran there and saw for himself the grievous sight of the girls' dead bodies on the floor. The cops arrived at the scene, and forensic experts examined the bodies, determining that Laura was stabbed about 20 times with a knife, and Krystal was stabbed 11 times. Knowledge of this shocked everyone in town. Homicide detectives hopped on the case. Their main and first suspect was Laura's dad, who was the first to see the girls' dead bodies after their tiring efforts searching for the girls in the same area he found them. When detectives dug deep, found out he had a shocking criminal record. He was associated with drug-related offenses And later on, in 2021, he and his wife had a heated argument. 3 men came in to intervene, and in a fit of rage and irritation, Laura's dad picked up a chainsaw and began chasing the men. They eventually maneuvered their way and held him down until the cops came in. This incident led to the family split that made Laura's mom take her and the kids to Zion. Laura's dad, Jerry, faced trials, and after a year he was sentenced to 10 years of probation. He missed a meeting with his probation officer, and he was sentenced to 18 months in prison. Immediately, he got out. He set out to make things right between himself, his wife, and his kids, and not long after, this gruesome event took place. The police had to have strong evidence to detain him. They called him in for questioning, and for 20 long hours, they questioned him and pressured him. Initially, Jerry said he had nothing to do with the girl's death, stating that he was home. His wife told him about the girl's lateness, so he set out to find them, and until morning, he had no rest. Until he did find her, he was in a state that would give him more restless nights. After a while of heated interrogation, Jerry began to break down in tears. He testified that later that evening, he stepped out to look for them, found them, and had a little spat with them. Krystal pointed a knife at him, which aggravated him, and that was the knife he claimed he used to stab the girls multiple times. With a heavy heart, as he read this report from a piece of paper given by the detectives, and with tears pouring like rain, he signed it. This turn of events terrified everyone in the city. None could seem to fathom how a father could stab his daughter, not just twice, not even 10, but 20 horrible times, and in different locations. His wife testified that he has a tendency to get aggressive, and she's always known and has seen a good part of it. Jerry was detained and awaiting trial, but while he waited, new and intriguing developments were made. Jerry wasted no time filling his lawyer in on how he sat on the hot seat for 20 hours plus, with no sleep. He alleged that he was put under immense pressure and had no choice but to confess to the killing of his daughter and her friend after the detectives had threatened him and his family. He was already in a bad mental state after seeing his daughter's dead body, and coupled with the detectives' method of questioning with a sprinkle of physical abuse, he gave up and confessed to the killing of his daughter. He alleged that the report was written and given to him to read out in front of a camera. His lawyer filed for a case review but was denied, as the prosecution argues that Jerry's confession was made out of nothing but free will and also affirmed it on camera. One way or another, Jerry's trial was moved up, and at that time, his lawyer realized that no single shred of evidence existed against his client. Although the medical examination team had already taken samples and swabbed a few fluids, they did no examination on the samples taken. They were only stored like vegetables in the fridge. Further investigation and the lawyer found out that Laura had male skin tears under her nails, which indicated a struggle, and semen on different parts of her body. The prosecution tried to stop the medical test from happening, but the earth favored the innocence of Jerry, and finally, in 2008, results came in, and all evidence points to another man being the killer. The discovery indicates that Laura was defiled and killed afterward, while Krystal was just killed, unquestionably by the same person or group of persons. However, great this discovery was, the prosecution found it inadmissible, stating that the semen could have been from couples who came to the park to fraternize. The prosecution dismissed this discovery, and all Jerry could do was wait and hope that a little ray of sunshine would shine down from the heavens and show his lawyer the way to go about this case because the prosecution were not willing to take it easy on this case at all. 4 years later, Amanda Snell in Arlington, Virginia, was a 20-year-old woman who had recently joined the military because her family had a strong tradition of military service. In addition to her duties, she volunteered at a local church near the base, teaching children with autism and other developmental differences. Amanda soon realized she wanted to pursue this work professionally and planned to get the necessary education after her military service. Mysteriously, Amanda didn't show up for duty on July 13, 2009, which got her fellow service members worried. They headed to her room, knocked, and got no answer. When they found the door unlocked, they went in. The room was super clean. The bed was made. Everything was in its place. But Amanda was missing. It was like she had vanished into thin air. Then they checked the closet and found a horrifying sight. Amanda's lifeless body was there, in a not-so-good position, with a pillowcase over her head. After going on and on about the cause of her death, medical examiners concluded that she died of suffocation, which occurred a day before her body was found. Her laptop and tablet were missing. She had not been assaulted in any way because of the lack of injuries and trauma to her body. However, the detectives did find out from her parents that Amanda suffered from severe headaches, and whenever the pain became unbearable, she'd tuck herself in a dark room and cover her head with a pillow. That explained why she was found in her closet with a pillow on her head, but the detective didn't rule out the suspicion of murder. The investigation remained open, and more investigation was being carried out. In February 2010, a woman who was a year past Silver Jubilee in Arlington was headed toward her boyfriend's house when a hooded man stopped her and told her to get into his car. He flashed a weapon to frighten her. The man grabbed her hand and tried to force her into the car, but she managed to set herself free, throwing her bag as a distraction, and she immediately dashed to her boyfriend's house, who immediately hit the streets and reported to the cops about what happened. Having seen him clearly, the woman could give a proper description of his appearance, and in addition, she knew the model of his car. With the information she provided for the police, the search was on. 2 weeks later, 2 women who returned from a hangout with friends were approached by a man at their doorstep, flashing his gun and telling them to give him all their money. They denied having any money. He forced them into the house and tied them up. Luckily, one of the ladies freed her hand when he left the room. She rushed to her phone and called 911. The man ran back, snatched the phone, and sent it flying into a wall. He grabbed one of the ladies, put her in his car, and drove off. After a few miles, he stopped the car and raped the woman. He used tape to try and kill her. She fell unconscious, but she gained consciousness after a while. She was taken to the hospital immediately after she was noticed. Luckily, she still had memories of the man and reported them to the cops, along with the type of car he used, a Dodge Durango, which was the same as before. A notice was put up, and not long after, a woman called. She had not only seen a man with that description, but he also tried to hoist her into his car, but she escaped with a stun gun, and right there, the police realized they'd got a serial killer in play. The cops focused on the car instead, since it was a lot easier to find through a database. They began to visit everyone who had that car model, and luckily, they came across one that had an ID of a woman. It was the same woman that was raped and left to die unconscious. They also found an earring, a stun gun, and the same tape that was used to tape those women. The owner of the car turned out to be a 21-year-old named Jorge Aile Torres. The young but very dangerous man served in the military. He lived in the same building as Amanda Snell, who was found dead a few weeks ago. During a search, a pistol, rounds of ammunition, and explicit videos of violence were found. Immediately, the three women saw his face, and they unanimously identified him as their assaulter because he didn't by any means try to hide his face when he attacked them. After Torres was arrested, he was put in jail while waiting for his trial. The police had good evidence that he had kidnapped one woman and attacked two others. But even with all this evidence, they ran into another big problem. They couldn't find any way to link him to the killing of Amanda. They devised a devious plan. They put a mole in his cell, someone who would wear a wire and get Torres to talk. This plan worked faster than anyone expected. Within a week, Torres started spilling his guts. He bragged about killing Amanda, saying he did it just because he had the chance and craved the adrenaline rush. He even gave a detailed account of how he hid her body in the closet. After the murder, he carefully cleaned Amanda's room to get rid of any evidence. But without realizing it, he left behind a crucial clue. He admitted to sexually assaulting Amanda on her bed using contraception. After moving her body to the closet, he made her bed but only took away the top sheet, leaving the mattress pad behind. The police sent this pad to the lab, where they found a tiny bit of male semen that was a perfect match for Torres' DNA. Furthermore, Torres accidentally revealed to their informant that he had kept a pair of Nike sneakers in his car. Crime scene analysts seized these shoes and matched the sole pattern to the footprint around Amanda's house. It was a perfect match. As a result, Torres was officially charged with murder and held in custody, awaiting trial. Meanwhile, a sample of Torres' DNA had been uploaded to the FBI's database. Several weeks later, investigators in Zion received a match between Torres' DNA and the semen samples found on Laura's body. The Jerry murder case had received a silver lining. A shocking reveal was made. Torres was from Zion and was a friend to the other brother of Krystal. Torres was, as of the time of Laura's death, 16 years old, and that erased the possibility of him being the killer and left Jerry as the prime suspect. With the recent development, Laura's dad was released, and he immediately filed a suit against the investigators who put him under duress and made him testify wrongly. They had no way to win, so they settled out of court for $8 million. After Torres was arrested, the legal process in Virginia wrapped up 4 years later. Despite his protests of innocence, the jury found him guilty of killing Amanda and trying to kidnap 2 other women, plus kidnapping a third. He got sentenced to death and received 5 life terms, plus 168 years in prison. He was sent to Illinois to face the trial for Laura and Krystal's murders. He denied doing it at first. His lawyer argued that the evidence wasn't strong enough. With the death penalty hanging over his neck, Torres took a deal that was presented to him. He agreed to admit he committed the murders in exchange for an extra 100 years in prison and to be moved to a safer jail where it'd feel safer for him. Torres remains in prison, still waiting for his execution. The police officers who made Jerry sign a false confession didn't face any consequences. Jerry, on the other hand, couldn't go back to a normal life. He started using drugs and got arrested for resisting arrest. He escaped from jail and got a 2-year prison sentence. He couldn't go back to his family, so he moved to Texas. In an interview, Jerry said the false confession ruined his life, explaining why he agreed to say such heartbreaking things. If only the cops had put in more diligence to do their work, then maybe, just maybe, Torres would have been caught and tamed in time. Amanda would not have died and would have led a wonderful life. The 3 other women would not have been assaulted, and some were raped, These are the victims that escaped. Just wonder about the victims that Torres might have properly done away with.